Hi, this is Monique Coppola from Hastings-on-Hudson, New York, and you're listening to the Voiceover Marketing Podcast.
This is the Voiceover Marketing Podcast, episode number 53. What are we going to use for a theme this week? I got nothing. Okay, we'll just make something up. On with the show! Hey there, it's John. How are you? Thanks for spending some time with me today. As of this recording, this is really cool. We have had 58,890 downloads of all the different episodes of the Voiceover Marketing Podcast. That's so cool. We're well over an average of 100 downloads a day. More like 130, 140 downloads per day. So very cool. Thank you. And if you are new to the program, if you're a new listener to the podcast, welcome. I really appreciate you investing a little of your time to join us. We've got a great guest this week, Bill DeWees, and he's talking about his marketing. Got some great resources, great mindset, and you're going to hear how he's turned this into a family business. He's got several members of his family working with him and growing his business, and you're going to hear about that during our conversation. Couple of housekeeping matters before we get started with my conversation with Bill. John Florian and Rob Siglimpaglia wanted me to thank everyone for ordering the Voiceover legal book that Rob Siglimpaglia wrote. It's a great book. If you're serious about treating and running your voiceover business as a business, then you need to get a copy of this book. I bought a copy of it, a couple of years ago, I think now. And within 4 or 5 days of getting the book, I needed to use it. I had to reference a section on music copyright issues and sound-alikes, and the information was in this book, but it's got all kinds of great information in there. The neat thing about it is we have arranged for you to get a discount to the book. If you just go to voiceoverlegal.com and enter the promo code V as in voice, M as in marketing, and P as in podcast. And the promo code again is VMP. If you enter that at checkout, you'll save 20%. That's $5 off the cost of the book. And you will be supporting the podcast at the same time. So check that out. It's a great resource. I know you won't be disappointed. John told me that the listeners to this podcast, we are the best sponsor and affiliate for this book that he has. So let's keep that going. He sent me an email the other day. He says, more people buy this book through the Voiceover Marketing Podcast than any other source. So I'm really proud of that. And I want to thank you for your support. I'm not going to share something with you that I don't do myself. And I'm not going to recommend something to you unless I honestly believe that it's going to provide you with some real value. Rob, who's the author of the book, is a lawyer, but he's also a voiceover talent and an actor. He's been in commercials, he's been in movies, he's working on TV shows. This guy knows our world, and he's written a book specifically for us. So check it out. I know I'm talking about it a lot, but I honestly believe this is a great resource, and you need to get this book if you are serious about your voiceover business at all. And it's such a small investment. And we've got a great promo code for you, VMP at checkout. Save 20%. That's $5 off the cost of the book. And you will be supporting the podcast at the same time. So let's see. I told you about the number of downloads. I've talked to you about the Voiceover Legal book. I think that's all I want to mention in terms of those resources. There are other resources there. Links to the Voiceover Legal book and other resources can be found on the show notes for this episode number 53. I can't believe it's November already. I mean, Halloween was earlier this week. My mind is still in August. I have it in my head that it's still going to be summer. We've had kind of a mild fall here in New England, and I'm all for it. You can put off the snow as long as you want. I do feel badly for the people who have the ski areas in northern New England and in Massachusetts. I know that's how they make their living. And one thing I said to myself years ago after my family got out of retail, one criterion I was going to have in any business was that it was going to be minimally impacted by weather, which means I'm not going to open a restaurant and I'm not going to have a retail location. I don't want to have to worry about whether or not I'm going to get business because of something as uncontrollable as the weather. That's one of my rules of business. And a couple of episodes ago with Eric Reynolds, we talked about the rules of engagement. That's one of mine. A business that's minimally dependent on what the weather conditions are. I learned that the hard way. And that's a long story. Perhaps if you'd like to pick my brain, I could share that with you in more depth. But this is not the time nor the place to be going into that. But I've been having crazy dreams lately. I'll wake up in the morning, feel like I've been at war all night long. Crazy stuff. Like my friend, I had this dream that he was buying a Dunkin' Donuts franchise. I'm having this conversation. Why are you buying a Dunkin' Donuts franchise? He says, well, I'm trying to get a small business loan. And, it's one of the more unsuccessful locations. Now, I'm in Boston. Dunkin' Donuts started in Quincy, Massachusetts. And, you can't... The last time I said you can't swing a dead cat without hitting something, whatever it was. I got some comments from cat people, saying, hey, you shouldn't be swinging dead cats. And it's just an expression. I don't own cats. I'm allergic to cats, so I can't really even touch them. So let's just say this. Dunkin' Donuts are ubiquitous throughout the metropolitan Boston area. And it's amazing. I don't know how they all succeed, but they do. They never go out of business. So this dream is my friend Ed. And Ed, if you're listening, I'm telling everybody about this dream I had about you and your wife buying this franchise. And they're not. This is a dream. They're not. And he was like, yeah, it's not one of their more successful locations. It only makes $87 million a month. And I looked at him in my dream and I was thinking, you're getting a business loan and it makes $87 million a month? We'll just borrow the money and pay it back next month. Weird stuff. And I'm thinking, I wake up the next morning and I tell Ann about it and I go, where is this coming from? And, I don't know. Thanks for listening to me. But that's what's going on. I'm going on vacation starting this week. I'm going to go visit my brother in Louisiana, down in Ragin' Cajun country. Go take in a football game, University of Lafayette. I'm looking forward to seeing them and having a little downtime. And I need it. I looked at my calendar and I looked at my autoresponder. And the last time I told people I was going to be out of the studio for any length of time was back in January. And I suppose that's why I'm just going like, are you kidding me? This year we got another, not even 60 days left in this year. And we're going to trip a digit, 2017. I just can't believe it. I'm a little punchy. I'm going on vacation. And I can't wait. This is my Halloween voice. Segueing into turkey voice. Ready? Here's the turkey voice. Gobble, gobble. Gobble, gobble. No, gobble. Okay, now let's move slowly away from that guy by the microphone and hit the segue music. Ready? Go. That's it. What's it say on the script here? Please join me in welcoming my guest today on a Voiceover Marketing podcast, Bill DeWees. Okay, stay tuned. John will be right back. I hope. Well, welcome back. As I mentioned in the first part of the program, my guest today is Bill DeWees. He is a full-time voiceover talent just outside of Chicago, and Bill's been working full-time as a voice talent since 2006. Some of his credits include Disney, Microsoft, American Express, Arm & Hammer, AARP, LG Electronics, Purina, and thousands more. And we don't have time to list them all, Bill. But
I dare you to try.
What you sent over was quite impressive, and I want to thank you for making time to be on the podcast today. You are a requested guest. So it's
wow. I am truly I'm flattered. Thank you.
Yeah. So everybody likes to hear the story. How did this whole thing, voiceover thing, start for you? I know you have a past career in radio. So, but tell us how this all evolved.
I really started thinking about it. I mean, who of us in radio hasn't at some point thought, man, it'd be nice to actually. Instead of just my regular radio gig, actually get paid for doing these commercials.
Right. Yeah.
At least that crossed my mind on more than one occasion. And I remember back in the mid-'90s, giving it some really serious consideration. But at that point, I've got 3 kids and a wife and a mortgage. And really, at that point, the business model was not the same as it is today. It was really early internet, and it was a very traditional business model where you had to get an agent. You had to be available to go to your agent to audition. You had to be available to go into a studio to record. I live an hour away from Chicago. So anyhow, it just wasn't realistic. So I left my radio gig actually in 2005. I was working for a business consulting firm, an instructional design firm, and ended up being downsized. So 2006, I thought, hey, you got nothing to lose.
Right.
Willing to try anything. I'll give this a shot. And I did. And, surprise, surprise, here I am almost 11 years later, still doing it.
That's great. What is it about voiceover that you like?
I just like the idea of having my own business, first of all. Mm-hmm. I like being able to control my own destiny. I like to be able to spend my money the way I want to. In terms of like marketing or equipment, and I like to know that if it's on me one way or the other. I like that. I like to take that responsibility, and I guess maybe some would see it as pressure. I really don't feel it so much as pressure. To me, it's very exciting, and I like working at home. And actually, I have my daughter and one of my sons actually works for me now.
Oh, cool!
And so it's kind of a family business now. And my wife's actually considering at some point coming in and doing more like bookkeeping and stuff like that. Okay. So we're kind of turning it into a family thing.
That's great.
And and so it's more than just voiceover. I mean, it really is. At this point, it's becoming a family endeavor, and I love it.
What do you have your children doing for you in the business?
Well, my daughter, Mallory, who also does really well in voiceover, she runs my office. And so right now she takes care of all things like invoicing and billing. She handles communication with all of my clients. The way my business model and business is set up, I just sit in my studio and I just record projects as they come in. I mean, I do a fairly high volume of work. And Mallory is like air traffic control. And she keeps track of all of it, and she prioritizes throughout the day. And if I need to be pulled off one project to go to another, she'll do that. As a matter of fact, right now she's setting up a recording session for a studio in Las Vegas that we're going to do over Source Connect. So when she can take the time to do those kind of things, it allows me to be really productive and to just record. In addition to that, the voiceover training side of my business, really about half of her time is spent on that because we deal with customer service. There's just a steady stream of emails that hit the inbox all day, every day, and it's actually become a much bigger thing than I ever anticipated that it would be. And so it requires additional help. I just can't handle it by myself.
That's great. Congratulations.
Thanks.
Yeah, that's awesome. And it's nice that you have the support there, obviously, that's close to home and actually has a little bit more stake in the game than someone who, just might not have as much of a vested interest as Dad's success.
Yeah, absolutely. And she takes it very seriously. And right. She knows that her success is dependent on my success, and she has a family as well to support. She's married and has 3 kids, so she is all in. Yeah, she has a lot of skin in the game.
That's great, and then you get to focus on what you really love, which is ultimately the goal for all of us.
Yeah, I mean, I really do enjoy recording voiceovers. It's not, it's not nearly as glamorous as I anticipated that it would be. Because you do this as well. And a lot of the bread and butter of what I do every day, I wouldn't call exciting. I mean, I enjoy it, but there's a lot of corporate, a lot of industrial,
right?
This, that, and the other throughout the day. And rarely is it what I would consider to be, really glamorous work. It's just it can be a grind. Like, today it's crazy. We were at lunch and my daughter was saying, "Dad, you've got so much to do today." And so, it becomes something, you feel the pressure, but at the end of the day, I like doing it. So it's all good.
Part of the fun of the voiceover work, I think, is you get exposed to a lot of different topics. So you learn about a lot of different things.
Yeah. Well, and I would say about 75% of my workload is like e-learning.
Yeah.
And so I know more about farming and manufacturing and safety and human resources. And right now it's all about like these HSAs, these health.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm talking about? Yeah.
I do.
It's like an open enrollment period. I think I just did 4 of those in the past few days.
Oh, really?
And so you're constantly exposed to stuff. And some of it I learned, some of it I just pretend to know. But you know how that goes.
Yeah. It's great when they change the regs because then they have to re-record all of the stuff that
Exactly.
You're like,
exactly.
Built-in job security. I suppose that's probably why they do it, Anyway. So as I mentioned before, you were requested because this is the Voiceover Marketing Podcast, and you alluded to it a little bit in terms of how you like to spend your money, and you mentioned marketing specifically. Could you share with us a little bit about what you do for your marketing and how you might allocate resources to that?
Yeah, sure. And really, first of all, I should say, I really spend next to nothing in terms of money on marketing. Mm-hmm. And I think I had at the time I didn't see it as good fortune, but now I do looking back. I've worked at a number of radio stations where I essentially had no marketing budget. And I had to learn how to be a guerrilla marketer and a street marketer and figure out how to get in front of my audience. And I became, in all humility, I became pretty good at it. And so for me, marketing breaks down to really two things. One is getting the attention of your audience or prospective client. And the second is maintaining that awareness. Mm-hmm. So a lot of that can be done with no money. It's really more time and elbow grease. And John, I'll be honest with you, my experience has been that most people don't seem to be willing to go to that place of discomfort or hard work or maybe both, because the truth is, if you want to be successful voice talent, you really have to learn how to be a business person and to think more like a business person, at least as much as you are a creative person, at least as much, which means there are emails to be sent, there are phone calls to be made, there's research to be done, and most of that doesn't cost you a penny. So in terms of money spent, I'm trying. I've done a little bit on Google Ads, and that was years ago, and I haven't. And that I think part of that was just ignorance on my part. I just didn't know what I was doing, and so I haven't invested myself. I haven't had to invest myself in enough to really figure out how. Mm-hmm. So my resources are really my time, right? And it's doing auditions through. I've got. I don't know, maybe 14 agents, something like that. Most of which I don't even audition for regularly. As a matter of fact, and this goes off, I could start a whole other conversation. But I'm going into what I call my third phase of marketing. The first is where I did nothing but marketing. Okay. Because, when you first start off, you have no work, right? So you've got to market, you've got to find work. The second phase, it was learning how to keep clients and continue to do outbound marketing, but to learn how to keep my clients. And now I just, honest to goodness, just this past month made a decision to not do any more what I'll call cattle call auditions through agents or online casting sites or anything like that. Yeah. And just to focus on building the quality of my clientele. And I'm only about 6 weeks into that now, and I have never been busier and I've never made more money. So it's an evolution, but when you're first getting started, you have to realize your resource is your time, and you've got to spend the time identifying who your audience is and finding ways to get in front of them. And I'd be glad to speak to that as well, but generally speaking, that's really where your time's spent. Sure.
I've got a bunch of questions I want to ask you because there was so much in that I hope people have taken notes.
That was action-packed, wasn't it?
It was loaded with all kinds of good stuff. Well, you mentioned that you're busier now and making more money now. Do you think that's because you are super focused on your clients and repeat clients and not investing the time, which we can make an argument that time is money, but spending that time doing the quote-unquote cattle call auditions and the pay-to-play site? Do you think that's a direct result?
I do. I think it's really a result of that and the fact that I made a conscious decision maybe between a year and two ago. I should back up. At first, my only concern, and this is the way I've always approached the voiceover business, a lot of people get really hung up on the idea of rates and how much you're making on a job. And I get it. I understand. But that's never been my focus. Is on how much I make a day. So my thought is, if I'm going to commit 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 hours a day, whatever it is, what is it that I want to get out of that time? And when I first started, my bar was a lot lower than it is now. It was $200 a day. That was my goal. Because I knew if I can make $200 a day, that's $50,000 a year, I knew I could support my family. Mm-hmm. And so for me, if that meant doing 20 $10 projects or one $200 project, frankly, I didn't care. That was my goal, and that's how I judged it. And then since then, I've pushed that up and up, and up and up. And so over the past year to 2 years, I had to decide if I wanted to continue to raise my income, which I do. I mean, who of us doesn't? The only way I could do that is either work more or get more for what I do. And as a voice talent, as you know, we only have so much physical resource that we can spend every day. I mean, you can't talk 24/7.
No, you only have one mouth, too. So you can only be in one spot. Yeah.
And me, I'm actually, believe it or not, I'm an introvert. So I know, hard to believe.
No, I am too. I get it. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, then, I'm glad somebody understands. Yeah. And when I say that, what I mean is when, to speak, to talk, really takes my energy. Not that I don't enjoy it, but I have to recoup by being quiet and being away from people and, all of that kind of stuff.
Yep.
So you can't farm this out. You can't delegate this. When they hire you, So the only way you can make more money is to actually get more money per project that you do. So that being said, and forgive the long runaround here.
No, this is good.
But what I began doing, a year and a half or so ago, was I began going back and identifying what I'll call my lowest producing clients for me. And that could be in terms of per job. It could be, when I think about what it takes to work with a client, there are a number of things. It could be how easy they are to work with. It could be the volume of work they give me a year, or it could be what they pay per job, on average. I kind of just factor, I don't have an actual math equation, but I just kind of factor all that in. And I took the least productive clients and I began to systematically discontinue working for them. And I did it. I mean, I love my clients. And I couldn't do what I do without them. So it was a very respectful, I was very grateful for the opportunity, but the way my business was heading and the growth, I could not continue to work at the rates that I was currently working at. 75% of the time, approximately, those clients would come back to me and offer me more. So that's been good. But a number I've lost, I've lost a lot of money along the way by letting clients go. But here's the important part. Yeah. The result is I've gained so much more.
Right.
Because I've cultivated higher paying clients. And that's something I'll just continue to do as long as I can. I hope that all makes sense. But that's kind of been my strategy.
Makes perfect sense to me. I mean, it's very smart. I mean, you don't want to diss your clients, but at the same time, like you said, a lot of them, they like working with you, so they came back with more money. And the ones who can't go for the ride, you would actually be doing your business and yourself a disservice by continuing to service them at that lower rate, because that's the opportunity cost, is that you're not available for those higher paying clients.
That's well put. That's exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah. I remember I did a webinar with John Florian a while ago, and we had settled on the price of I think it was like $49 for the price of the webinar. And somebody said, if you reduced it to $25.99, you'd get more people into the webinar. Maybe, but I'd have to get twice as many people to make the same kind of money. So we were actually going to have to work harder to enroll people into the webinar, so that because we were both making money off of the webinar. So
yes,
it's kind of the same thing. It's like, we could cut the price in half, but then we got to get twice the number of people in order to hit the same number. So
then there's always the question, and for this the marketer in me, forgive me, but then is there more after? I mean, is the purpose of the webinar to sell the webinar, or is it to actually introduce people to a higher paid service?
Right.
In which case, maybe the lower cost makes sense up front, but only because it makes you more on the back end. So, but yeah, those are all things that have to be factored in.
Exactly. Yeah. The back end. Somebody who is a marketer and gets it.
yeah. There is a back end in marketing. Not so much in voiceover, but
you're right. In this case, the webinar was the product. So
okay, I see.
Yeah, you mentioned a couple of things that intrigued me, and I think I know what you meant by it, but I'd like you to expand on it a little bit more. You mentioned two things. People are afraid of the discomfort in hard work. I think we understand what you mean by hard work, but what did you mean by the word discomfort?
Okay, yeah. Well, first of all, when you get into marketing, a lot of people perceive it to be sales, which are really, marketing is more of a strategic function. Sales is more of the, buy my stuff function. Mm-hmm. And it scares a lot of people. They perceive it to be more sales than marketing, if that makes sense. But there are some activities that, like, for instance, I think one of the highest yielding activities that you can do is to actually make phone calls to prospective clients, like video production companies, mm-hmm. to market yourself. Well, people freak out, and I don't think I'm exaggerating much when I say that, when I suggest that.
Yeah.
And I have a marketing program where I record myself. I called a number of, these are honest to goodness phone calls to prospective clients, in which, by the way, I got a client during the course of those calls, but I recorded it and played it for my students so they could listen. What they perceived to be a sales approach was really just saying, hey, are you accepting demos? That's all the call's about. I'm not asking them to do anything.
Right.
I'm not asking them to hire me. I'm just saying, hey, are you currently accepting demos? And by the way, John, everybody says yes. Nobody ever tells me no, they're not accepting demos. They may or may not listen to it, but nobody ever says no. So a lot of people, that just mentally freaks them out. Early on, really before I started coaching, there was a guy in Chicago that, used to make a really good living as a voice talent. As things moved more online, he found himself spending more time on his couch waiting for his agent to call him, which is the way, that was the way he was used to doing it, and those calls weren't coming. So he wanted to have lunch with me to find out what I was doing, because he had heard that I was doing pretty well, and we sat down, and he asked me to explain to him what I did. So I went through the process, and his response to me was, oh, man, he goes, that's just too much work. Huh. Because he was used to his agent calling him, hey, I got a job for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that just doesn't, I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but I'm saying that's not the norm. When that happens, that's icing on the cake.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. It's like,
oh my gosh.
Cool.
Yeah. It's like, whoa, guess what happened? And that may only happen once every 10 years, but when it does happen, it's a big deal. Don't expect to build a career on it.
Right. Here's a gift out of the sky. Bloop, right for you.
Yeah, exactly. And celebrate it for what it is, but never expect it to happen again.
Yeah. There are folks, I guess, in LA and all that, that's all they do is agent stuff, but you gotta be doing some other stuff. So is that what you meant by discomfort?
That's yes. Or the time involved. Like, for instance, one of the things I encourage the people I work with is to mine, as an MINE, Craigslist for leads. Mm-hmm. Some of my best clients came from that. Well, it's not easy work, because it's not like you go on one day and find exactly what you want and you're done. This is, when I say mine, I literally mean like mining for gold, like sifting through crap for days on end.
Yeah.
Until you find the nugget of gold. There's a way to do it, and you have to be consistent every day. And I used to literally mine Craigslist. All of Craigslist 3 times a day. Wow. Every day. But I found a lot of great clients that way. But I had to sift through a lot of crud to get to them, and that's hard work. And it's a discipline. And really, what I say, maybe I should say discipline instead of hard work, because it's not fun always, and it's not glamorous. But when you run a business, there are disciplines you have to do, especially I think when it comes to sales and marketing. Disciplines you have to do, like if it's sending emails, if it's searching Craigslist, if it's making the phone calls. You may not feel like it, but if you're not spending a few minutes every day doing them, then nothing will ever happen. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. The other thing that you mentioned that I thought was intriguing, and I think people they're so used to hearing it, but that they just kind of discount it, but you said it, and I'd like you to explain it a little bit more. You said people need to become a business person. And people say, yeah, I'm running a voiceover business. And then they give it that much attention. What do you mean by you've got to be a business person?
Well, I think you have to think of what you offer as a product that has value, your voiceover. I think that you also have to understand that the people who might want to use your service don't know you exist. And so the biggest amount of energy that you're going to spend, especially, for the first, I don't know how many years, is going to be creating that awareness that you exist, because they don't know it. And just because you put a sign up on your door that says, your voice talent, and it doesn't matter how great you are. It doesn't even matter how great your demo is necessarily. If nobody hears it, then what's the point?
Right.
So, I mean, in that regard, also, a lot of people, they think talent equals success. When I say success, I mean it's monetary success, making a living doing this. And one of the biggest shocks when I began the coaching thing, about, 5 or 6 years ago, was the number of people from Los Angeles and New York who were represented by some of the top agents like Atlas and those kind of agencies asking for help. And I was shocked. I was absolutely shocked, because just because you're signed by a great agent doesn't mean you're working. And I would go and listen to their demos and think, oh my gosh, these guys are world class. Or I had a guy last year, it was about a year ago, I guess, who wanted to do a one-on-one coaching session with me. So we're talking, and he says, okay, here's the deal. I've been doing this for a long time. I mean, he struck me. He's probably a guy in his 60s. He said, I've been doing this for a long time. I said, when was your last job? He said, 2 years ago. Okay, okay, great. Yeah. And that job was actually a Centrum Silver TV commercial that paid him $100,000, which is great.
Yeah.
But he said, we lived great that year, but I haven't worked since. So that's the point. It's, great. He landed that job, and who of us wouldn't love to make $100,000 in a job? But wouldn't you rather make $200,000 or $300,000 a year consistently for the rest of your life?
Sure, yeah.
You know what I mean? As opposed to say, but most people play it like the lottery. They keep spinning the wheel, waiting for that one big job to come around, when they could have built a really sustainable career that just keeps, sustains them and their family on and on and on. So, I just tried to help him understand that he needed to change his strategy and think like a business person. And that's really what I mean by that.
A couple of questions, and then I want to talk to you a little bit about your consulting that you've mentioned a couple of times. And I've started to ask this question of guests on the show, and if you don't want to answer it, that's fine. What's your morning routine like?
Well, I'll skip the shower and the brushing of teeth, and I'll spare you all those details.
Yeah, everybody does that, hopefully.
Yeah. When you said they didn't want to tell you, I didn't know what part they didn't want to tell you.
No. Some people, it's very personal. Who knows? I don't know.
Oh, no. I grab my, this morning I had an English muffin with grape jelly and butter and a banana. I watched a little bit of HLN News with Robin Meade, and then I head down to the studio about, 8 or 8:15. So basically, it's my son, my daughter, and I are all going to work together. We kind of meet in the kitchen.
Okay.
They come in, and we kind of catch up on stuff, and we head downstairs. And then for me right now, it's a matter of, then I'll talk to my daughter, Mallory, and she'll say, okay, here's what we've got. And she literally gives me my lineup for the morning. This came in overnight. These people would like you to give them a read on this. We've got some pickups, or corrections for such and such, or hey, whatever the case may be. So she'll line up what I'm doing for that morning, and then I'll get in and I'll just start working through that to-do list. And it's punctuated by, I've got this, I kind of juggle a full-time voiceover career with really what's becoming a full-time voiceover coaching career too. I'm trying to learn how to better manage that, but it's punctuated by things like coaching sessions, or I'm a demo producer too. I do a lot of demo production. And so Mallory does a lot of that pre-production for me. But I may have a coaching session to prep a client for that, or I may be actually coaching somebody through a session remotely. Or like yesterday, Mallory and I spent about an hour in the studio actually doing, mixing and mastering a demo. So it's never the same, but all that is the same is that Mallory tells me what to do and I do it. I think it's consistent from day to day.
That's great.
Because you have to understand your strengths and weaknesses. And I know I'm not an administrator. That's not my strength. I think I'm a visionary. I mean, I'm really good at planning into the future, kind of seeing things as they could be and moving in that direction. But I'm terrible when it comes to daily management and keeping track of priorities. And numbers, don't even get me started on numbers. I could barely add. but my daughter has a very strong administrative skill set, like her mom, my wife.
Yeah.
And so that's where that she basically is my handler and just tells me what to do.
Yeah, and so you're playing to your strong suit.
Yeah. Thankfully, with having with their help, that's exactly what I'm doing.
That's great. I mean, that's the smart thing to do once you can get there.
Yeah,
I mean,
and I tell you, I was scared when I first hired her because I thought, oh my gosh, I've got to, can I continue to do this?
Right.
And can I afford it? Can she afford? But I knew I couldn't keep going the way I was. I'd have to level out and not take on any more work. But what happened was I took a huge growth spurt as soon as she came on, because then I could focus on things that grew the bottom line.
You've mentioned a few times now you're consulting and coaching. What types of coaching and consulting do you do?
Well, I do one-on-one coaching. I don't promote it so much because, in all honesty, I'm not looking to book myself up doing that because I can't. I mean, I just can't because of my voiceover work. When people request it, I'll accommodate several sessions a week, probably not more than one a day, usually.
Oh, well, that's still a good number.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly keeps my hands in it. But like for instance, today, I don't know how late I'll be working tonight, just because it's you never know from day to day. Some days are fairly slow. And some days, get really packed, but I can't take on a lot of the coaching because of that reason. But there's that aspect of it. But really what I focus on is I create training programs that I market and sell, almost all of them in video format.
Oh, cool.
And yeah, so that's really the area of my focus for training. And I've got a YouTube channel with over 400 videos, most of them tutorials. And you just search Bill DeWees on YouTube. It'll take you there. I don't know how many hours of content there are on there. And, of course, that's all free. So my goal is to give people a lot of help, something they would have to pay for. And then if it requires more time and energy and they would like my help further, then that's available too. So I've got, maybe 10 different programs, training programs ranging from marketing outline and blueprint to character work to, oh my gosh, how to run your office for maximum profit, audiobook, narration. I mean, it's a little bit of everything. And of course, I do actually a lot of demo production as well. So those are, I don't know if that answered your question fully. That's really kind of where the focus is. So
you're creating assets for your business that basically leverage your time and generate money for you.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. Yeah, that's what this podcast is all about. I think that's great. Very, very,
I think our missions align.
Yeah, that's great. The information you sent over to me has voiceovertraining.org is the website that you've created for that?
Well, actually, let me give you an easier. Just go to voiceoverrevolution.com.
Voiceoverrevolution.com.
Yeah, okay. And that takes you to my voiceover training site, which, by the way, is kind of under an overhaul right now. So you can find stuff on there, but it might be a little confusing at first. Forgive me for that. We just switched over to a whole new platform, and we're revamping really the entire guts of the business side of stuff. But anyhow, voiceoverrevolution.com is where to find my voiceover training stuff, and then BillDeWees.com is my voiceover website.
All right. And we'll put links to those in the show notes for this episode. That would be great. Absolutely. And your book, How to Build a Six-Figure Voiceover Business?
Yeah, How to Start and Build a Six-Figure Voiceover Business. Subtitle, Set Your VO Career on Fire.
There you go. And that's available on Amazon.com, I believe.
Right.
Well, Bill, if there's one thing you want to leave our audience with today, what would that be?
I'm going to go back and really restate something that we talked about earlier, because I think is the most important thing that I have to say to voice talent, and that is when you're not behind the microphone, put on your business hat and think like a business person. In other words, don't passively wait for things to happen. Always be active. meaning have a regimen every day related to marketing activity that gets you in front of prospective clients. How can I do that? Well, maybe through email, through phone calls. I'm a big believer in online casting sites like Voices.com and Voice123. It's probably where most of my work these days comes from. So, find ways and commit to doing those routines, those disciplines every day, because if you do those every day and don't even worry about results will happen. Eventually, you won't be able to keep up with results if you do all the daily activities. And that's being a business person. That's my, word of wisdom for today.
I think that's great. Bill, this has been a lot of fun getting to know you and having this conversation.
Oh, me too, John. Great getting to know you. And thanks for the opportunity. This is a great podcast.
Oh, thanks very much. I appreciate you saying that. And we'll have to have you back on the show again sometime. I
will look forward to that. I'll have to learn some new stuff to talk about.
I'm sure you'll have it. Anyway. All right, Bill. Be well.
Thanks, John.
If I could put time in a bottle, I wouldn't.
Our program originates in the Boston studios. We hope you'll join us again. Until then, we bid you au revoir, keep your chin up, and the best of luck.
Well, that's it for this episode of the Voiceover Marketing Podcast. If you like this podcast, please subscribe to it at voiceovermarketingpodcast.com so you'll get notices of new episodes, and please share it with your friends and colleagues in the voiceover world. Also, it would be a huge help if you'd like this podcast and rate it on iTunes to help keep it near the top of the list. Feel free to share your comments and questions about this episode and future topics you'd like discussed at voiceovermarketingpodcast.com. And if you'd like more information on one-on-one coaching where we focus on growing your business, feel free to drop me a line at my cyber assistant's email address at mike@johnmelly.com. Thanks for listening. Now go out there and share your voice with the world.